She's just a friend, he said, but he never texted me like that anymore. His phone buzzed at 2 a.m., and when I glanced at the screen, my stomach dropped. I can't sleep. Wish you were here. I pretended not to see it. Instead, I waited until morning and casually said, Would you ever be with someone else if we broke up? He shrugged. Maybe, but that's a hypothetical. I handed him his phone and whispered, Not for her. He unlocked it and saw the message waiting. His face went pale, and he knew I was onto him. We had been together for 6 years. 6 years of birthdays, lazy Sundays, inside jokes, and shared routines. 6 years of believing we were building something real, something solid. Then his phone buzzed at 2 a.m. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't the type to snoop. But in the dark, the screen lit up, and my eyes landed on the message before I even realized what I was doing. I can't sleep, wish you were here. My stomach twisted. I stared at the message, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at him. He was asleep. Or pretending to be. I felt frozen. I didn't touch his phone. Didn't scroll up. Didn't check for more messages. I just laid there, my mind running in circles, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't my name on that message. Someone else wished he was with them. Someone else was lying awake at night thinking about him. And my boyfriend, the man I'd spent 6 years with, was the person she wanted. I should have shaken him awake right then. Should have demanded an answer. But instead, I swallowed it down and waited. I wanted to see what he would do next. Morning came, and I felt like I hadn't slept at all. He got up like nothing had happened, stretched, yawned, kissed my forehead like he always did. I forced myself to act normal. At breakfast, I casually asked, Would you ever be with someone else if we broke up? He didn't even look up from his phone. Maybe. But that's a hypothetical. I slid his phone across the table. Not for her. His face went pale. For a second, he just stared at the screen. Then his expression shifted, like he was scrambling for the right response. She was just drunk. She texts me stuff like that sometimes. It doesn't mean anything. I didn't even respond. I said nothing. Just watched him. His fingers hovered over the screen. I could tell he wanted to delete the message. You can't just pretend I didn't see it, I said. Now he was frustrated. What do you want me to say? I didn't cheat on you. Why is she texting you like that? He rubbed his face like this was exhausting for him. Because we talk sometimes. That's it. He didn't deny she wanted him there. He didn't say he wasn't interested. He just kept telling me I was overreacting. Her name was Sophia. I'd met her before. She worked with him. The work friend. The one he always swore I didn't need to worry about. She had a boyfriend, he said. They were just friends. They talked about work. She was cool. She was chill. And I had believed him. But looking back, all the pieces were there. The way his phone never left his pocket. The quick, secretive smiles at texts. The nights he stayed late, the way he seemed distant when he was home. I had felt it. The slow shift. The unspoken change in our relationship. But I had ignored it. Because I trusted him. Because I thought we were okay. Now, I wasn't so sure. I needed proof. I needed to know if I was crazy. I waited until he left for work, then I sat on our bed, staring at the spot where his phone had been the night before. I had never gone through his phone before. But I knew if I asked to see it now, he'd delete everything first. So I did the next best thing. I went on Instagram. Sophia's profile was private. But her boyfriend's wasn't. And that's where I found it. A picture of Sophia, smiling, wine glass in hand. The caption? Girls' night, but wish my favorite person was here. In the comments, my boyfriend's name. A single emoji. The smirking one. A joke? Maybe. But my gut told me otherwise. That night I tried again. I asked him straight up. Are you cheating on me? He hesitated. It was less than a second, but I felt it. I swear I'm not, he said. I love you. His words should have made me feel better. They didn't. Then why does she text you at 2 a.m.? She was drunk. Why does she wish you were there? He sighed like I was being difficult. I don't know. She's been having a rough time with her boyfriend. I just listen. That's all. I didn't believe him. He wasn't texting me like that anymore. The next few days were a blur. I watched him more closely. I noticed how he turned his phone screen away when he typed. How he took calls in the other room. I checked his car. The seat was pushed back, too far for me. I noticed the cologne bottle in the glove compartment, the one he didn't use around me. I asked him to see his texts. He got defensive. Why don't you trust me? Because I had seen the message. Because I had felt the shift. Because deep down, I already knew. One night, I decided to test him. I told him I was going to my sister's place. I didn't. I parked down the street and waited. An hour later, he left the apartment. And I followed him. He drove across town, taking turns that felt too familiar, too practiced. My hands were sweaty on the wheel as I followed at a distance, headlights off, heart racing. I already knew where he was going before he pulled into the parking lot. Sophia's apartment complex. He didn't hesitate. He didn't sit in the car and debate, didn't text first, didn't seem unsure. He parked, got out, and walked straight inside like he belonged there. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I could have stormed in after him. Could have confronted them both right there in the hallway. Could have made a scene. Instead, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, and I waited. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Still no sign of him. My brain went to dark places. Images I didn't want to picture, whispers I couldn't unhear. I kept telling myself, maybe they're just talking. Maybe he's just helping her with something. But deep down, I knew better. I opened my phone and clicked on his location. We had shared locations for years, mostly out of convenience, never out of suspicion. His little dot sat there, unmoving. Inside her apartment. I swallowed back the lump in my throat. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Sophia's boyfriend. I had only met him once, at a work event. He seemed like a decent guy. Quiet. Polite. Someone I had barely thought about until now. He picked up on the third ring. Hey, it's me. I don't know if you remember me, I said, my voice shaking. Yeah? What's up? I could tell he was confused. I was probably the last person he expected to hear from. I took a breath. Are you with Sophia right now? There was a pause. No. She said she was tired and staying in tonight. Why? My stomach clenched. I forced myself to stay calm. Because my boyfriend is inside her apartment right now. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, what? I could hear his breathing change. The way he suddenly understood what I was saying, what it meant. I'm outside her building, I said. He walked in almost an hour ago. He hasn't left. More silence. Then a sharp inhale, like he had just been punched in the gut. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When he pulled up, I barely recognized him. His face was pale, jaw tight, eyes dark with something sharp and dangerous. He parked next to me and got out, gripping his phone so hard I thought it might snap in his hand. Neither of us spoke for a second. We just stared at the building, both of us standing there, breathing in the same betrayal. Then he turned to me. You ready? I nodded. And together, we walked inside. The hallway smelled like old carpet and cheap air freshener. My pulse pounded in my ears as we reached her door. Her boyfriend didn't hesitate. He knocked once, hard. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Sophia. Open the door. Silence. I glanced at my phone. My boyfriend's location still showed him inside. He was in there. With her. The air felt too thick to breathe. Then, shuffling. A muffled voice. The sound of movement inside. And then, the lock clicked. The door opened just a crack, and there she was. Sophia. Wrapped in a hoodie that wasn't hers, eyes wide, face pale. She saw her boyfriend first, then me. Her lips parted. No words came out. And then, behind her, he appeared. My boyfriend. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled. He looked at me like he had just seen a ghost. Babe. He started, voice low, like he was trying to calm a wild animal. What are you doing here? I let out a laugh. A hollow, bitter thing. His voice. His tone. Like I was the one doing something wrong. Her boyfriend wasn't as patient. He shoved the door open the rest of the way. Are you effing serious right now? His voice was deadly calm, but his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Sophia stammered. It's not what it looks like. But I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at him. Because that hesitation? That flicker of panic in his eyes? That told me everything I needed to know. The silence stretched between us like a knife blade. My boyfriend stood there, half hidden behind Sophia, looking like a trapped animal. His mouth opened, then shut. No excuse. No immediate denial. That told me everything. I felt something inside me break. Sophia's boyfriend stepped forward, his voice sharp. Move. Sophia didn't. She looked panicked, glancing between him and my boyfriend like she was calculating her next move. Then I saw it. Behind her, just barely visible, a second pair of shoes by the couch. Not just my boyfriend's. A different pair. A man's. The breath left my lungs. Something flickered in her boyfriend's eyes too, like he was putting the pieces together. I pushed the door wider, stepping inside. My boyfriend was still standing there, frozen, but my focus had shifted. There was another man here. And Sophia knew it. Sophia, I said quietly, voice shaking. Who else is here? She didn't answer. But then, another sound. A shuffle. From the bedroom. And then, the worst possible thing happened. The door creaked open. And a man walked out. Not just any man. My boyfriend's best friend. I swear, for a second, no one moved. No one even breathed. My boyfriend went rigid beside me, his eyes widening in horror. No f-king way. Sophia's boyfriend turned to her, voice low and dangerous. You're kidding me. But Sophia didn't say anything. She looked guilty. Caught. And her silence was louder than any excuse. My boyfriend's best friend, let's call him Ryan, ran a hand through his hair, sighing. He looked at my boyfriend, then at me, and shrugged. Shrugged. Like this was just one of those things. Like this wasn't a f-king nightmare. Sophia spoke first. This just happened. Ryan scoffed. Let's not do that. It didn't just happen. And then, everything snapped into place. Because Ryan wasn't shocked. Not like my boyfriend was. Not like I was. Ryan looked done. Like he was tired of pretending. Like he was ready for this to come out. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a secret fling. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been going on. For a long time. I turned to my boyfriend. How long? His jaw was tight, fists clenched. He stopped himself. I didn't know. But Ryan let out a short laugh. No, you didn't. Ryan agreed. Because you were too busy sneaking around with her. He jerked his head toward me. My blood went cold. What? Sophia's boyfriend said. His head snapped toward my boyfriend. I could barely breathe. What do you mean? Ryan's lips curled into something bitter. Oh, don't play dumb. You think I didn't notice? All the late nights, the work trips that didn't exist? He looked straight at me. You think I didn't know about you and him? I felt like the floor had just been ripped out from under me. My boyfriend and Ryan's girlfriend, and me and Ryan's best friend. This wasn't just cheating. This was a f-king disaster. My stomach twisted. I turned to my boyfriend, eyes burning. Is that true? His face had gone pale. He looked at Ryan, then back at me, like he was scrambling to figure out the right lie. But Ryan wasn't waiting. Tell her, he snapped. Or should I? I could feel Sophia's boyfriend staring at me now, too. What the FCK is happening right now? I took a step back, heart pounding. Because suddenly, I wasn't just the one being cheated on. I was part of the betrayal. And I had no idea who to believe anymore. For a few painful seconds, nobody moved. The air in Sophia's apartment felt too thick, too heavy. It smelled like cheap candles and betrayal. Ryan's words were still hanging there, pulsing like a wound. Or should I? My boyfriend, hadn't denied it. He hadn't said Ryan was lying. He just stood there, frozen, eyes darting from me to Ryan to Sophia like a trapped animal. I forced myself to speak. You and? My voice cracked. You and Ryan's girlfriend? My boyfriend ran a hand through his hair. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, anything, but the guilt on his face was already answering for him. Ryan shook his head and scoffed. Pathetic, he muttered. Sophia's boyfriend, who had been quiet up until now, turned to me. Hold on. You. His voice dropped, like he was still trying to catch up. You slept with Ryan? No. The word shot out of me too fast. Too sharp. But then I hesitated. And that hesitation was just as damning as my boyfriend's had been. Sophia's boyfriend let out a short, bitter laugh. Holy SHT. The realization hit me all at once. We weren't just 4 people caught in some tangled mess of infidelity. We were all guilty. Sophia, my boyfriend, Ryan, me. The floor felt like it was tilting. My head was spinning. I wanted to defend myself. It wasn't like that. It wasn't serious. It wasn't like what they did. But wasn't it? Ryan spoke again, his voice eerily calm. You really thought I didn't know? He tilted his head. All those nights you said you were going to bed early and he suddenly had to stay late at work? You thought I wouldn't put it together? I felt sick. Sophia's boyfriend turned to my boyfriend, looking at him like he wanted to put him through a wall. How long? He asked. My boyfriend swallowed. His throat bobbed. He looked at Sophia, then at me, like he was deciding who to answer first. Ryan laughed darkly. Come on, man. Say it. My boyfriend exhaled sharply. A few months, he muttered. The room went silent. Sophia's boyfriend nodded, like he was filing it away for later, like he was committing the number of months to memory so he could go back and count how many times she had kissed him with my boyfriend's name still on her breath. Then he turned to me. And you? I felt my whole body lock up. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say it was a mistake, that it happened once, that it didn't mean anything. But I could feel Ryan's eyes burning into me. 4 months, he answered for me. Started in June. My stomach lurched. I expected my boyfriend to explode, to rage, to demand why or how, but he didn't. He just went quiet. And that silence? It felt worse than any screaming match could have. Ryan was the first to move. He reached for his keys on Sophia's counter and pocketed them. I'm done, he said, flat and final. You can't have her. He shot a look at my boyfriend. Both of you. Sophia's mouth opened. Ryan, please save it. His voice was cold. Sophia's boyfriend looked between her and me and my boyfriend, his face twisted with something ugly. Rage. Disgust. Hurt. Then, without another word, he turned and followed Ryan out the door. And then, it was just us. Me. My boyfriend. Sophia. No distractions. No one left to deflect the blame onto. Just the three of us and the mess we had created. The second the door shut, my boyfriend turned to me. What the FCK? His voice was quiet, but his hands were shaking. 4 months? I swallowed hard. You were sleeping with her. His nostrils flared. And you were sleeping with my best F-king friend. Sophia, for once, didn't try to defend herself. She just stood there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. My boyfriend shook his head, laughing without humor. This is insane. He turned away from me, running both hands through his hair. What the FCK are we even doing? I didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. We left. No more screaming. No more accusations. I walked out first, then him, the silence between us deafening. We drove home in separate cars. I half expected him to pack his bags. To say it was over. But he didn't. He just sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor, looking more exhausted than I had ever seen him. And that's when I realized something terrifying. We had both ruined this. So what happened now? Neither of us knew. We just sat there, drowning in the wreckage. And for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't sure we could ever fix it. I wish I could say I left right away. That I slammed the door, that I walked out with my dignity intact. But I didn't. Because love, real love, doesn't just disappear overnight. It rots. It lingers. It whispers, maybe we can fix this. We tried. For a few miserable weeks, we tried. But trust? Once it's gone, it never really comes back. And in the end, we both knew the truth. We had already lost each other. Long before that night.